The Empire had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They controlled more than 3,000 star systems. Their fleets were massive. Their armies were endless. Every species they had ever met had fallen to their power. Some surrendered quickly. Others fought and died. But in the end, all of them bowed before the throne. High Prelate stood in the great council chamber of his. He was old by standards, nearly 400 years. His skin was pale blue, and his eyes were like black glass. Behind him, the holographic map of the galaxy glowed with thousands of conquered worlds. Each light represented a species that had learned its place. Today, he would add another light to the map. "Show me these humans," he said. The map shifted. A small cluster of stars appeared at the edge of known space, 12 planets, a handful of space stations. Their civilization was barely 300 years old. They had only recently discovered faster-than-light travel. "This is all of them?" asked. His military advisor general nodded. "Yes, High Prelate. They are young, weak. Their largest warship is smaller than our smallest cruiser. They have no experience with galactic warfare. They do not even have proper shields on most of their vessels." Smiled, this would be easy. Another quick conquest, another species to serve the Empire. "Open a channel to their leaders," he commanded. "Let them hear the voice of their new masters." Across the galaxy, on the planet called Earth, alarms began to sound. Admiral Park was drinking tea when the alert came. She was 52 years old, with streaks in her black hair and calm eyes that had seen too many battles. For 20 years, she had commanded humanity's defense forces. She had fought pirates, rebels, and rogue colonies. She had never lost a war. But she had always known this day would come. Humanity was not alone in the universe. Sooner or later, something bigger would notice them. She walked into the war room beneath the city of Seoul. The chamber was deep underground, protected by layers of rock and metal. Holographic displays covered every wall. Officers moved between stations, their voices tense. "What do we have?" Park asked. General turned to face her. He was a large man with a shaved head and hands that could crush stone. He commanded all of humanity's ground forces, millions of soldiers across 12 worlds. "Incoming transmission," he said. "From something called the Empire. They want to talk." Park nodded. "Put it through." The main display flickered. A face appeared. Blue skin, black eyes, the alien wore robes of gold and silver, and behind him, Park could see the shadows of a vast throne room. "I am High Prelate of the Galactic Empire," the alien said. His voice was cold and proud. "Your species has been judged. You have expanded without permission. You have refused to pay tribute. You have treated our diplomats as equals when you are clearly inferior." Park said nothing. She simply watched. "You have 30 cycles to surrender," continued. "Lay down your weapons. Open your worlds to our fleets. Bow before the throne and you will be allowed to serve. Refuse and you will be destroyed. Every man, woman, and child, every city, every ship. We will erase you from the stars as if you never existed." The transmission ended. The war room was silent. Every officer stared at the empty screen. Some looked afraid, others looked angry, but Admiral Park simply stood there, her face unreadable. Then she began to laugh. It started quietly, a small chuckle. Then it grew louder. Her shoulders shook. Tears formed in the corners of her eyes. She laughed like she had just heard the funniest joke in the universe. General stared at her. Then slowly he understood. His own lips began to twitch. A moment later he was laughing too. Fleet Admiral entered the room, saw his commanders laughing, and after a brief moment of confusion, joined them. Air Marshal was the last to arrive. She looked at the recording of the alien threat, looked at her laughing colleagues, and shook her head with a grin. "They really don't know, do they?" "No," Park finally managed, wiping her eyes. "They have no idea what we are." Watched the human response in confusion. He had expected fear, panic, begging. Instead, their military leaders were laughing at him, laughing. "What is wrong with them?" he demanded. "Are they insane?" General shifted uncomfortably. "Perhaps they do not understand the threat, High Prelate. They are primitive. They may not comprehend our power." Nodded slowly. "Yes, that must be it. These humans were simply too stupid to know they should be afraid." "Prepare the armada," he ordered. "We will teach them fear." But deep in his chest, in a place he did not want to acknowledge, something whispered a warning. He had conquered many species. He had seen many reactions to his threats: anger, terror, defiance, despair. He had never seen laughter. Back on Earth, Admiral Park called her commanders to the planning table. The holographic map showed space, their fleet positions, their supply lines. "They think we are children," she said. "They think because we are young, we are weak. They do not know our history. They do not know what we have done to each other." General nodded grimly. "Humanity has been at war since we first picked up stones. We have burned cities. We have split atoms. We have killed billions of our own kind." "And we survived," Admiral added. "Every time we broke ourselves and we rebuilt, we learned." Park looked at her officers. These were not frightened people. These were wolves who had finally found prey worthy of their teeth. "Send a message to all commands," she said. "Humanity is at war, and for the first time in our history we are united, one species, one purpose, one enemy." She smiled, and there was no kindness in it. "Let them come. Let them see what we really are." The armada jumped into human space on a cold Tuesday morning. 2,000 warships, the largest fleet the Empire had sent against any species in 500 years. Each vessel was massive, covered in weapons and protected by shields that could stop asteroids. Their target was new, humanity's outer colony. A small world with 3 million people. They expected to crush it in hours. They expected the humans to run, to scream, to beg for mercy. They were wrong. Commander Shin had been waiting for them. She was 34 years old, small and quiet, with short hair and eyes that never seemed to blink. Her fellow officers called her the Ghost because of how she moved through battle, silent and deadly. She commanded 60 ships, 60 against 2,000. The numbers were impossible. Any sane commander would retreat. But Shin was not interested in being sane. "All ships hold position," she said calmly. "Do not power weapons, do not raise shields, let them come close." Her officers exchanged nervous looks, but they trusted her. She had never led them wrong before. The fleet approached slowly. Their commander, a proud warrior named Admiral, watched the tiny human force with amusement. These creatures had not even activated their defenses. They were simply sitting there, waiting to die. "Pathetic," said. "They have accepted their fate. All ships prepare to fire. Let us end this quickly." The ships spread out in perfect formation, exactly as their military doctrine demanded. Each vessel had its assigned position. Each captain knew his role. It was orderly. It was precise. It was beautiful. And it was exactly what Shin had expected. "Now," she whispered. The asteroid field behind the human fleet suddenly came alive. Hidden among the rocks were weapons platforms, mines, and sensor jammers that they had completely missed. In the same moment, the human ships scattered in all directions, breaking every rule of organized combat. They fired. Their weapons hit empty space where the human ships had been moments before. And then the chaos began. Human ships did not fight in lines. They did not hold positions. They moved like angry bees, weaving between asteroids, diving behind vessels, using the enemy's own formation against them. They had never seen anything like it. Captain flew his frigate straight through the middle of the enemy fleet, so close to their ships that they could not fire without hitting each other. Behind him, 2 cruisers collided trying to catch him, their shields sparking as they crashed together. Lieutenant Osumi led a squad of fighters into the gap between a carrier and its escort ships. They were so small and fast that the big guns could not track them. They planted explosives on the carrier's hull and flew away before they understood what was happening. The explosion tore the carrier in half. Commander Shin watched from her bridge as the enemy formation fell apart. They were trained for orderly battle. When their lines broke, they did not know how to adapt. They shot at each other. They crashed into debris. They panicked. "Push them," Shin ordered. "Do not let them reform." Admiral screamed orders at his captains, but no one was listening. The human ships were everywhere, appearing from shadows, striking from impossible angles, then vanishing before anyone could respond. One captain tried to surrender. His white flag was ignored as a human destroyer rammed into his engine section, the human crew evacuating into escape pods at the last moment. The explosion took out 3 more ships nearby. Stared at his tactical display in horror. Red lights were appearing everywhere. Each light was a destroyed ship. In minutes, he had lost over 100 vessels. "They are insane," he whispered. "They have no regard for their own lives." The battle lasted 11 minutes. When the surviving ships fled into hyperspace, they left behind the wreckage of more than 300 vessels. The humans had lost 12. Commander Shin sat back in her chair as the last enemy ship disappeared. Around her, the crew was cheering, crying, hugging each other. They had done the impossible. "Send a message to their fleet," Shin said quietly. "Open channel, I want them to hear this." The communications officer nodded. "Channel open, Commander." Shin leaned forward. Her voice was calm and cold. "This is Commander Shin of the Human Defense Force. We learned to fight each other for 10,000 years before we reached the stars. We perfected war when your empire was young. Every tactic you have, we invented. Every strategy you know, we abandoned centuries ago because we found something better. You wanted to conquer us. Instead, you have awakened us. Run home to your masters. Tell them what you saw today. Tell them the humans are coming." She cut the transmission. On the High Prelate watched the battle recording in silence. His hands were shaking. His advisors stood behind him, too afraid to speak. The humans had torn apart his fleet like it was made of paper. They had used tactics that should not work. They had sacrificed their own ships without hesitation. They had fought with a fury that they had never seen in any species. "What are these creatures?" asked softly. General stepped forward. His face was pale, his voice trembled. "High Prelate, I have been studying their history, the files we captured, the transmissions we intercepted." He paused as if afraid to continue. "They call it war. They have been doing it to themselves for their entire existence. They have weapons that can destroy planets. They have killed billions of their own kind. They are not like other species. They are not afraid of death. They welcome it." Turned slowly. "You are telling me we declared war on a species that enjoys fighting." "I am telling you, High Prelate, that we have made a terrible mistake." Looked back at the screen. The frozen image showed a human ship ramming into a carrier, its pilot ejecting at the last second with a smile on his face. For the first time in 400 years, the High Prelate of the Empire felt afraid. The council met in emergency session for the first time in 3 centuries. 12 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy sat around a circular table, their faces filled with worry. The holographic display in the center showed the wreckage of their fleet at noon. High Prelate stood before them. He had not slept in 2 days. His blue skin looked pale and tired. "We underestimated them," he admitted. "We thought they were primitive, young, easy to break. We were wrong." Council member, an ancient female with silver markings on her face, leaned forward. "Then send more ships, 10,000, 20,000, crush them with numbers." "Numbers will not save us," replied. "Watch." He played the battle recording again. The council watched in silence as human ships tore through the formation like knives through cloth. They saw the ramming attacks, the suicide runs, the complete disregard for personal safety. "They do not fight to survive," said quietly. They fight to win. There is a difference. Council member, the military leader, shook his head. No species fights like this. It is against nature. Every creature values its own life above all else. Not these creatures. Activated another display. It showed files that his intelligence teams had gathered over the past 2 days. Human history, human wars, human weapons. The council read in growing horror. The humans had fought each other constantly, for land, for resources, for religion, for ideas, sometimes for no reason at all. They had burned cities to the ground. They had starved entire populations. They had created weapons that could split atoms and destroy everything within 100 miles. And they had used these weapons on themselves. This is impossible, whispered. No species would do this to its own kind. They did, replied, and they survived. Every time they broke themselves and they rebuilt. They learned from their mistakes. They got better at war. For 10,000 years they practiced killing each other. Now they are using all of that experience against us. The council chamber was silent. Far across the galaxy, Fleet Admiral stood before his own commanders. The mood was very different here. After the victory at Nu, human morale was at its highest point in history. Every soldier, every pilot, every citizen believed they could win. Was not so optimistic. "The will come back," he said. "Harder, stronger, more desperate. We hurt them badly, but we did not break them. The next battle will not be so easy." Admiral Park nodded. "Then we do not wait for them. We bring the war to their space. We make them bleed in their own homes." She pointed at the holographic map. "I am authorizing the hand doctrine. Small teams, deep strikes. We hit their supply lines, their shipyards, their fuel depots. We make this war so costly that their own people will beg for peace." The hand doctrine, named after the Korean concept of collective grief transformed into determination. It was humanity's oldest strategy, perfected over thousands of years. When you cannot win through strength, you win through persistence. You endure, you suffer, and you make your enemy suffer more. Lieutenant received her orders 3 days later. She was 28 years old with quick hands and quicker reflexes. She had been a pilot since she was 17. Now she led a strike team of 20 fighters, the best in the fleet. "Your target is a supply depot in space," her commander told her. "Deep behind enemy lines. If you are caught, we cannot rescue you. You will die alone." Smiled, "I understand." Her team launched at midnight. Their ships were small, painted black, invisible to most sensors. They flew for 6 days through empty space, sleeping in shifts, eating cold rations, speaking only when necessary. When they reached the depot, they found exactly what intelligence had promised. A massive station filled with food, fuel, and ammunition for the fleet. Hundreds of cargo ships waited nearby, ready to carry supplies to the front lines. "Strike formation," ordered. "Primary target is the fuel storage. Secondary targets are the cargo ships. Tertiary is the communication tower. Hit everything, then get out." Her team attacked like ghosts. They had no warning. One moment everything was peaceful. The next, explosions tore through the station. Fuel tanks erupted in massive fireballs. Cargo ships burst apart. The communication tower collapsed in a shower of sparks. The entire attack lasted 4 minutes, but was not finished. "Intelligence says there is a backup depot 3 hours from here," she said, "and a shipyard 6 hours beyond that. We have enough fuel for both." Her second-in-command, a young man named, looked at her with wide eyes. "That was not part of the mission." "The mission was to hurt them," replied. "We are not done hurting them." They destroyed the backup depot. They crippled the shipyard. Then, instead of running, transmitted her location to the emergency channel. "This is Lieutenant of the Human Defense Force. We just destroyed 3 of your facilities. We are currently at these coordinates. Come and get us if you can." Patrol ships arrived within hours. 100 of them, surrounding the tiny human strike team. Led her pilots into an asteroid field that they would never dare enter. The rocks were too dense. The paths were too narrow. Any sane pilot would crash within minutes. Human pilots were not sane. They flew through the field like water through cracks, twisting and turning at speeds that should have been impossible. The ships tried to follow. 3 of them crashed immediately. 10 more pulled back, too afraid to continue. 8 of pilots died in that asteroid field, but the other 12 escaped into hyperspace, leaving behind a trail of destruction that would take the months to repair. When returned to base, she found General waiting for her. He pinned a medal on her chest with his own hands. "You scared them," he said. "Every supply officer in their empire will be looking over their shoulder now. They will send more guards to protect their depots, more ships to patrol their space. They will stretch themselves thin, and we will cut them deeper." Saluted, "What are my next orders, sir?" Smiled, it was not a kind smile. "Rest for 3 days. Then we send you back out. We have a list of targets that will take years to complete, and we are going to complete every single one." The war had only begun, and humanity was just getting started. 6 months had passed since the war began. The Empire had not conquered a single human world. Instead, they had lost ground everywhere. Their supply lines were in chaos. Human strike teams appeared without warning, destroyed everything they could find, and vanished before reinforcements arrived. Their border systems were under constant attack. Their citizens were beginning to ask questions that had never been asked before. Why could they not defeat these primitives? Why were so many soldiers dying? Why was the mighty empire struggling against a species that had barely left its home planet? High Prelate had no answers. His generals had no answers. The war that was supposed to last weeks had become a bleeding wound that would not close. In desperation, he ordered the final offensive. Every ship the Empire could gather, every soldier, every weapon, 4,000 warships, the largest fleet in galactic history. Their target was Earth itself, the human, the source of all their troubles. "If we destroy their home," told his council, "the colonies will surrender. Cut off the head and the body will die." It was a reasonable plan. It had worked against every other species. But humans were not every other species. Admiral Park knew they were coming. Human spies had been watching the buildup for weeks. She had time to prepare. The defense of Sol, humanity's home system, became the priority of every human alive. Factories worked day and night producing ships and weapons. Volunteers flooded military recruitment centers. Even retired soldiers, some of them 80 years old, demanded to be given guns and put on the front lines. "They want to destroy our home," Park told her commanders. "They want to kill our families, our children, everything we have ever loved. We will not let them." When the fleet arrived, they found 800 human ships waiting for them. The numbers were 5-1 in favor of the. By any measure, humanity should have been crushed. The battle began at dawn, Earth time. Captain Yang commanded a single destroyer, a small ship called the Indomitable. He had served in the fleet for 15 years. He had a wife and 2 daughters on Earth below. He could see his planet through his bridge window, blue and green and beautiful. "All hands battle stations," he said calmly. "Today we fight for everything that matters." The first wave of ships crashed into the human lines. Explosions lit up the darkness of space. Ships on both sides broke apart, their crews dying in fire and vacuum. Yang's destroyer took hit after hit. His shields failed, his weapons were destroyed, half his crew was dead, but he kept fighting. When his ship could no longer shoot, he aimed it at a carrier and pushed the engines to maximum. "All hands abandon ship," he ordered. "Get to the escape pods now." His crew obeyed. As the last pod launched, Yang stayed at the helm. He guided his broken ship directly into the carrier's engine core. The explosion destroyed both vessels and damaged 3 more ships nearby. Yang's last thought was of his daughters playing in the garden back home. Across the battlefield, Colonel led boarding operations. Her Marines captured enemy ships and turned their own weapons against them. It was brutal, close-range fighting, the kind that humans had been doing for thousands of years. Herself killed 17 with her own hands. When her rifle ran out of ammunition, she used a knife. When the knife broke, she used her fists. Her armor was covered in blood, some of it hers, most of it not. "Push forward," she screamed at her soldiers. "Every ship we take is one less shooting at Earth." By the end of the first day, they had captured 43 vessels. The battle lasted 3 days. On the second day, a young pilot named made his final flight. He was 19 years old, barely old enough to vote, too young to drink alcohol legally, but he was old enough to die for his planet. His fighter was damaged, his weapons were empty, but he was still flying, still fighting, still refusing to give up. He found the flagship, a massive vessel called the Eternal Victory. It was the command ship of the entire fleet, where the admiral directed the battle. If it fell, the enemy would lose their coordination. Aimed his broken fighter at the flagship's bridge. He opened a communication channel that every human ship could hear. "My name is," he said, his voice was steady. "I am 19 years old. I was born in a small town called, I wanted to be a teacher someday. I wanted to help children learn about the stars." He took a deep breath. "But today I am a soldier. Today I protect my home. Today I show the universe what one human can do." He whispered one final word, "Remember." His fighter hit the flagship's bridge at full speed. The explosion killed the admiral and destroyed the command center. Without leadership, the enemy fleet fell into confusion. The humans pushed harder. When the third day ended, the armada was broken. Less than 400 ships limped away into hyperspace, leaving behind the wreckage of their dreams of conquest. Earth was safe. Admiral Park stood on her bridge watching the enemy retreat. She was exhausted. She had not slept in 3 days. She had lost friends, colleagues, people she had known for decades. But they had won. She opened a channel to her message was simple. "We did not start this war, but we will finish it. Your fleet is destroyed. Your empire is bleeding. You have 2 choices. Come to terms and we will show you mercy. Or continue fighting and we will we will stand in your council chambers. We will sit on your throne. And we will remind you for the rest of history what happens when you threaten humanity's children." She paused. "The choice is yours. Choose wisely." The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, the people heard her words and understood. The war was over. They had lost. High Prelate traveled to Earth on a small diplomatic ship, alone except for his personal guards. It was the first time in 10,000 years that a leader had visited of a species they considered lesser. But the humans were not lesser. The broken remains of his fleet proved that. The empty chairs in his council chamber, where advisors who had died in the war once sat, proved that. The protests in his own streets, where citizens demanded peace, proved that. He had started this war expecting glory. He was ending it hopping for survival. The ship landed in a city called Seoul, had read about it during the journey. It was old, one of the oldest cities on Earth. It had been destroyed and rebuilt many times throughout human history, invaded, burned, bombed, and every time the humans had built it again, taller and more beautiful than before. That was humanity in one image. They broke and they rebuilt. They fell and they rose. They could not be destroyed because they refused to stay destroyed. Admiral Park met him at the landing platform. She was smaller than he expected. Her face was lined with age and exhaustion. She looked like someone who had not slept properly in months. But her eyes were sharp, alert, the eyes of a predator who had just finished hunting. "High Prelate," she said, "welcome to Earth." bowed slightly, a gesture of respect he had never shown to anyone outside his own species. "Admiral, I come to discuss peace." "Then let us discuss." The negotiations took place in a building that humans called the Peace House. It was simple, almost plain, with white walls and wooden floors. Nothing like the golden throne rooms of the general had wanted to hold the talks in a different location, in the ruins of an ancient city called Pyongyang, where humans had once fought a terrible war against each other. He wanted to remind thee of what humanity could do. Admiral Park had refused. "We have made our point," she said. "Now we make peace, real peace, not humiliation." The terms were discussed for 7 days. In the end, they were simpler than anyone expected. The Empire would recognize human sovereignty over their current territory. No tribute, no submission, no bowing to the throne. Humans would be treated as equals. 3 star systems on the border between their spaces would become neutral zones. Neither side would build military bases there. Neither side would claim them. Trade routes would be opened. Humans would share their medical technology, which was surprisingly advanced. They had cured diseases that still struggled with. They had developed treatments that could extend life and heal wounds that should have been fatal. In return, they would share their knowledge of faster-than-light travel. Human ships were fast, but ships were faster. Together, both species could explore regions of the galaxy that neither could reach alone. On the final day, signed the treaty. His hand was steady, but his heart was heavy. He had started as a conqueror. He was ending as a diplomat. It was not the legacy he had imagined. As he set down his writing tool, he looked at Admiral Park. "I have one question," he said. "It has been bothering me since the beginning." Park nodded. "Ask." "When we declared war, when we threatened to destroy your species, your commanders laughed. Why? Were you mocking us? Did you know you would win?" Park was quiet for a long moment. She looked out the window at the city beyond. The sun was setting, painting the buildings in shades of gold and red. "We did not know we would win," she said finally. "We hoped, we prepared, but we did not know." "Then why laugh?" Park turned back to face him. Her expression was strange, sad, but also something else. Relief, perhaps, or release. "Because we finally had a use for it," she said. "For all of it, 10,000 years of war, millions of deaths, all the terrible things we did to each other. We have carried that weight for so long. The guilt, the shame, the memory of what we are capable of." She paused. "When you threatened us, we recognized you immediately. You were just another empire, another conqueror, another bully who mistook kindness for weakness. We have been fighting your kind since before we discovered fire." Listened in silence. "The laughter was not mockery," Park continued. "It was relief. Relief that all our suffering had not been meaningless. Relief that the skills we developed killing each other could be used to protect each other instead. Relief that, for the first time in our history, we were truly united. One species, one purpose, one enemy." She stood and walked to the window. "We are a violent species, High Prelate. We know this about ourselves. We have tried to become better. We have tried to control our worst instincts, but they are still there beneath the surface, always ready, always waiting." She turned back to him. "You woke something in us that we had been trying to put to sleep, and now that it is awake, we do not know if we can put it back. That frightens us more than you can imagine." Was silent for a long time. He looked at this small, tired woman who had defeated the greatest military force in the galaxy. He thought about her species, their history, their endless capacity for both creation and destruction. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "we can help each other. Perhaps your violence and our order can balance each other. Perhaps together we can build something better than either of us could build alone." Park looked at him. For the first time since they had met, she smiled. It was a small smile, tired but genuine. "Perhaps we can," she said. She extended her hand. This is how humans seal agreements. We call it a handshake. It means we trust each other at least a little. Took her hand, her grip was firm. Then let us begin, he said, not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals, as partners. As neighbors, Park agreed. Outside, the sun finished setting over Seoul. The city lights came on, millions of tiny stars covering the earth. Somewhere in the sky above, human and ships were already beginning to work together, cleaning up the wreckage of war. It would take years to heal the wounds, maybe generations. But for the first time, both species were facing the same direction, toward the future, toward possibility, toward something better. The war was over. The real work was just beginning.